Charleston, South Carolina, home to the 2023 USL Championship finalist Battery. And there's excitement around this team for good reason. Nick Maric has helped restore the Battery to former glory. His 3 goals lead the club. Tonight he takes on Wilson Harris off a hat trick against Indy on the weekend and the most blistering start in the league. The Eastern Conference Final rematch on CBS Sports Network. The USL Championship is on CBS Sports Network tonight, an Eastern Conference Final rematch in Low Country. The Charleston Battery and their sold-out stadium at Patriots Point play host to Louisville City FC. And a very pleasant good evening wherever you may be, joined by Devin Kerr, Mike Watts on hand. And Dev, both these teams have had this circled on the calendar from the very minute the schedule came out.
This game's got a little bit of everything for everyone, right? We've got the best attacking unit in Louisville City, the best defending squad in the Charleston Battery, the reigning Eastern Conference finalist, and lest we forget, 2 of the 6 remaining unbeaten teams. What more could we ask for?
An incredible game tonight. Now think back about 6 months to the USL Championship final, right at this locale. Fairy tale from the bottom of the league all the way to the final. And Nick Maric, the opening blow for the Battery, it seems like they're on pace to ultimately win the title. But in the 90th minute, John Stenberg hands home the equalizer. Phoenix on level terms. They play 120 minutes, and the fateful final penalty. Derek Dodson pushed off the post by Rocco Rios Novo. Phoenix hoists the trophy. Now for Charleston, they've reloaded. They've added the best midfielder available.
This is arguably the most creative, the most defensive. He does everything in the entire USL Championship. It's his press up top, the willingness to do the dirty work. But for me, Mike, it's the control as he drops down underneath to hold all this thing together. And oh, by the way, yeah, he can knock some set pieces as well from distance.
And they've added a lot more pieces than just that.
I'd say that 9 players that could easily step right into a starting lineup for any team in the entire USL Championship. Here's what you need to know about the Charleston Battery. The Charleston Battery don't run a very deep roster in terms of numbers, but the overall quality. Now all of a sudden, every single week, that's starting 11 being pressed for their positions.
Meanwhile, for Louisville, Dev, Wilson Harris, let's go ahead of the curve.
This is the best striker in the USL Championship right now, but let's talk about why. Number 1, it's his overall vision, his ability to challenge in one-on-one situations when it doesn't go his way. Watch up at the bottom of your screen. He's in an offside position, jumps back onside, but watch his body positioning. Opens himself up to give himself options. He can go back post, he can go near post, goes right to the bottom corner, and they've got the first one. Second of the night, it's his timing, his ability to understand not just where to make the run, but when exactly to do it. Peeling off the back shoulder and into the final third. Last but not least, I love this about him, his unselfish nature. A slight pause to allow multiple options to progress into the top of the 18. Back post run, Wilson Harris assists.
7 goals in the last 4 games. Charleston will try and stymie the Louisville Talisman tonight. It is the rematch of the Eastern Conference Final. 2 historic clubs from the championship in South Carolina on a Tuesday night. The Battery and Lou City are next on CBS Sports Network. just as it was in November, but thankfully a little bit warmer. The Battery and Louisville matching up in an Eastern Conference rematch from Patriots Point. Charleston made a couple changes, Dev, to their unbeaten lineup.
They're linear in nature, but they're predictable. So they lead the league in passes, second most efficient on the ball. But that's not an issue because they are so good moving forward and coming back. Love what I've seen and the balance out of the outside backs, getting up and down the field. Last year, just one-sided, but I'm looking up top tonight to MD Myers. How does he occupy this back line of Louisville City? He's got to find a way with that physical nature and speed to stretch them, challenge the space underneath. Well, this is going to look a little bit different for Louisville tonight with their 5 changes, right? How does the midfield hold up considering the fact we've got a new relationship with Carlos Mogel and Taylor Davila? I also look at the wingbacks, Aiden McFadden coming in on loan, and Amadou Dia. The best this team has been able to stretch and transition on the width. Does that remain a constant on the road tonight?
Alexis De Silva holds the whistle tonight, and it might be a tough gig. Louisville and Charleston. So it was, so it is again. Week 6 in the USL Championship, arguably the best match of the week. And it's on CBS Sports Network for the first time. Charleston Battery host Louisville City. Well, if you're watching on CBS on Saturday to the Louisville-Indianapolis Proximity Association football contest, otherwise known as Louisville hosting Indy 11, you saw Louisville drop 5 goals for a second consecutive game. The first time in their 10-year history that they've done that. Wilson Harris, a big reason why, 7 goals in 4 games, including a hat trick against Indy. They take on this Charleston team that is unbeaten. And Danny Cruz told us, Devin, they've done a good job replacing like for like within their system. What does he expect from Charleston? More of the same that they've had under Ben Pierman.
You can't undervalue the culture that Louisville City have not been able to create, Mike, but replicate, right? To get these talented players, bring them in, and seamless in transition, that the success just continues to follow. And yes, he was clear about the fact that the Charleston Battery tactically haven't changed that much, but the depth of talent that they've been able to acquire, almost unprecedented given the names that are sitting on the bench right now for the Battery.
Waggling back and forth, seeking Serrano. Sent to the bleachers. Into Kyle Adams. Launches into the area, knocked down, swiped at by Serrano. Didn't make clean contact. And Malloy goes to work. And the Battery are flying forward. Chipped into space. Mark Koenig. 11 goals last season. May have skipped on the way, and Louisville's not going to take any chances. They'd rather concede the set piece.
Certainly a ton of changes for Louisville City, but the Charleston Battery have had to face their own woes early on in this season as well. Namely, something that I'm looking at tonight, Mike, is the absence of Arturo Rodriguez. Arturo Rodriguez, who broke his leg against Miami, he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks roughly. So in the absence of a true number 10, you're going to try and recreate through Emilio Icaza, but they become so talented on that front line, it doesn't necessarily have to be just him.
Late run, diving header, Loss pushes it away. The offside flag had gone. Loss is wondering how they possibly could have lost any touch. What led to a flying header.
What was the conversation coming in for Aaron Malloy? As good as he can be in the open run of play. Service from dead balls. Pretty impressive. Emilio Icaza fully unmarked on the back post. Just something to keep an eye on here for Louisville City. Although it has been perfect. 4 up, 4 down, atop the Eastern Conference. I know very early on, but still atop the Players' Shield standings right now. Attacking-wise, can do no wrong. Defensively, there is an asterisk next to their name right now coming out of that game against Indy 11, where even though they bagged 5 for consecutive times, first time in Louisville City history, defensively, they conceded very unnecessarily. Danny Cruz quick to point out that that's what they're looking at to shore things up with all of this rotation and giving other guys an opportunity.
Indy on Saturday, 3 shots on target, a total XG of just over 1 goal. The majority of that came from a penalty that they felt came due to defensive complacency. ultimately 3 resounding goals. An 8-goal thriller on Saturday afternoon. We would like to keep this a little more within the constraints here tonight. Dos Santos. Maric showing off speed against Adams. Lost his footing. Reverts to Ikaza. Slipped outside. Segbers. Now Malloy. Ikaza. Malloy again. Arguably the best dead ball set piece taker in the league. Wiped across. Cleared in part. And now out through Harris. And lobbed long. The reach, Jorge Gonzalez. Dev, you and I were asking the coaches as we chatted them this week, what's sort of that one memory that stood out from the Eastern Conference final last year. For Ben Pierman, it was an Arturo Rodriguez stunner of a free kick. Really set the tone in that game. Danny Cruz, however, rather than anything about the game, more spoke about the environment in the moment. He said it felt like a final here. Sold out. Saw Rob Salvatore, who took over the club a couple of years ago, that at the time was in a bit of disrepair. Told him, what a job you've done here. This is a proud, proud club in Charleston, South Carolina. 3 decades worth of history. Allen, Dos Santos. Anything you remember from either that Eastern Conference final or maybe the final, Charleston and Phoenix, that you and I got to take in Charleston?
Definitely the final itself. No disrespect to Louisville and Charleston, but just the crazy momentum swings within the game.
Yeah.
It felt like it was a Charleston team that could do no wrong immediately, and they were just going to run away with the match. That got slowed. The physicality started to creep in. Probably didn't finish as many chances as they should have early on to extend that gap. And then all of a sudden, the big bad wolf for the Western Conference, Phoenix Rising, they made their changes. They got on the ball more. They were more direct. And their ability to throw their weight around allowed them to get back into the match that just felt like once it hit the overtime period, you almost knew that it was going to go the way of the Western Conference.
Grinwis was looking for Dos Santos, and McFadden pressing high to knock it out of play.
I would also say that it was that and our pregame picture on top of the roof, which was pretty awesome.
It is.
Not for public consumption, I don't think.
Unless you make it public. Flipped in behind. It's up to Harris to make something out of nothing here. Dos Santos slides, belongs to Louisville. Off to a 4-win start from 4 games. Only once have they done that. 2018, they went on to win the title. McFadden. Which side of the corner flag did that get out on? It is a corner for Louisville City. And it'll allow us to ponder the curious case of Carlos Moguel. Take the set piece. A holding midfielder who was suspended for the first game because of a red card he picked up in that conference final. And then, well, the rest of the teams played so well these 4 games, he hasn't even made it the bench. That changes today. Signed a new multi-year deal over the offseason at the tender age of 20 years young. Moguel delivers. Header, snap down and in! And the opening goal belongs to Louisville City and Jorge Gonzalez. His first of the season, and the Spaniard has quieted the crowd in Charleston.
Just too much space on the backside. Wondered if on this little peel-off was there actual contact, almost like a pick, to open up the space for him to actually have this much real estate. all the way to the backside of the 6. Oh, and he just loses the runner. MD Myers could have drifted there to continue the run forth, but I'll tell you, the marking itself really poor on the back stick for the Charleston Battery. Too much time, too much daylight, and once again, Louisville City out in front.
And Jorge Gonzalez opens the scoring just 9 minutes in. That is Louisville's 15th goal, 4 games and 10 minutes into the season. Far and away the highest scoring team in the league. Allen. Charging into space. Knocks it wide. Torres. Crossing. Settled atop the 6. Back to Allen. Off the post. And MD Myers responds in less than 2 minutes time.
You're talking about subs on one side of the pitch for Louisville City. How about Chris Allen coming up through the midfield? This is what we were talking about, the quality of depth that the Charleston Battery have been able to compile. Yeah, I get it, it's a slip, but watch how quickly he takes it. Open hips to allow himself to be positive in nature and push the tempo right up through the middle. That constricts Louisville City. They start to come in and like a heartbeat, it's in, then it's out. Great overlapping run from Torres down into the corner, and all you're trying to do here is put this thing in a dangerous spot back across the 6. I said physical nature by MD Myers, I said speed, but how about the work rate to get back into an onside position, then turn his body and slot this thing home.
Serrano lobbing. This is the beginning of a new partnership between the USL and CBS, and if you're just now finding out about this league, I don't know that you're going to get 10 goals every 100 minutes, but we aren't complaining about it either.
I'm not complaining. I promise you both managers are probably thinking about something right now. The weekend against Indy 11 for Louisville City that saw 8, now 2 in just about 10 minutes time. The coaches as well, Danny Cruz for Louisville City, Ben Pierman for the Charleston Battery. Not hard to talk about their names as perennial Coach of the Year candidates.
Mogel assisted Gonzalez on the last corner, was looking in the exact same spot. Is that a corner? Yes, it is. That was a defensive touch back toward Gonzalez, so he was not in an offside position while the Battery stepped. Battery, just their second home game of the year. They throttled New Mexico 4-0 here a few weeks ago. Miguel, too clever for their own good. And Miguel lost his footing. Dev, you think about MD Myers and getting that goal. Ben Pierman was quick to say, as Louisville tries to press deep in the Charleston half, we don't have a natural backup for him right now. So this being his 3rd game in 8 days, it's a lot of work for a guy who really gets it done on both ends.
He's a pest, and I mean that in the best of ways. Now, This is an out-and-out talented striker for sure, but the amount that he frustrates back lines because of his movement, we've already seen some of that, right? You know, the ability one-on-one to occupy a center back, but then to also stretch 2 or 3 at a time to open up the space underneath. Stop me if I'm wrong here. That's exactly how the first goal is created, right? He all of a sudden sticks back up top on Arturo Ordonez. That allows Chris Allen to step through the space. And then as they come back through, the secondary option coming forth. You shouldn't be that surprised, though. This is a guy who in 2020 had 14 goals in 14 games and tied for the nation's lead in scoring in college soccer coming out of High Point. Transferred to Rutgers, had another quality season. He was the Big South Freshman of the Year. He was the Big South Forward of the Year. Didn't get his opportunity with NYCFC. Lit it up with the 2 team last year. 19 goals in 28 matches.
Ball through. We've seen this before, but the flag is down on Harris. Myers was unanimous Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year at Rutgers, featuring for Jim McElderry in that very ascendant Scarlet Knight program up in Piscataway. The Rutgers of old are back. Torres really wanted that diagonal played, and it just slowly meanders in his direction. Malloy will dictate. Marcanic. Myers making the run, leaves it off, Icasa saved by Loss. And driven out of harm's way. So Loss 13 saves in the first 4 games, has already made a couple tonight. Busy start for the young Louisville netminder, the 21-year-old loanee from Austin. And played back calmly by Sharpie. Up from McFadden and down by Allen. The problem with that pavilion over in the corner started allowing folks to become properly imbibed on this Tuesday. They haven't gone to their seats yet.
Still holding court on that much elusive pretzel and cheese over there as well, right?
Yep.
Never did make it there in the fall.
You know, it was cold enough the night of the final, I think the cheese would have frozen.
The Gatorade certainly wasn't helping. This is what we were talking about, by the way, the occupation by this attacking unit. There's the stretch now. Watch MD Myers as he comes. He drags Ordonez with him. That's the space in behind. How's that vision, by the way, for MD Myers? And then as you continue forth, good flick. But the set by Damian Loss, notice how he's drifting, then stops immediately, recognizes where the momentum's coming from. Great save off the right foot from the goalkeeper.
Arturo Ordonez, Defender of the Year in Pittsburgh last season. Mogel. Now Ordonez again. Loss. I was intrigued to see how this back three would look for Louisville. This is the three that, to some extent, was envisioned by Danny Cruz at the start. Ultimately, they made a change as they went through preseason. Felt it was no knock on Wes Sharpie, but moved Tosh back in. They started the first 4 games, albeit at times a little defensively shaky, at least numerically, with Tosh, Adams, and Ordonez in the middle. Sharpie's back in tonight.
I would say the biggest talking point for me, Mike, is going to be Ordonez into the middle.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Wes Sharpie and the overall personnel. It's the control that he gives you. So you talk about the 3, Sharpie, Ordonez, and Adams. Sharpie was on the central part of that conversation to begin with.
Right.
Ordonez just gives you an added dimension. He allows you conversationally to control both, but then also retain that aggression that we saw so much in the Pittsburgh Riverhounds that produced the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year. It also allows guys like a Kyle Adams, like a Sean Tosh, to step out and go and challenge some of these wingers when need be. If an Amadou Dia or an Aiden McFadden in those positions tonight get caught out, that's how good this back three is, how quickly they're willing to go close and space down. Obviously, you're just hoping in this situation, Marcanic's able to get up off the challenge.
Knocked by Adams, who's worn the captain's armband early in the season for Louisville in the absence of the inimitable Brian Ownby. Without that key attacking threat. He had surgery last week. We had a chance to say hello to him in Louisville on Saturday. I look forward to elongating Ownby again on television real soon. Marcanic's back up, that's good news. And Charleston begin with Marcanic trotting back onto the field. Charleston unbeaten through 5. They had a similar incredible unbeaten run to start last season. Ben Pierman was quick to say that felt like house money. It's a little different now with all the expectation. Pressure on Grinwis. He releases in time through Leland Archer. High hop with an obvious push. how Charleston feel rather than house money start. They're better on the field than their points would portend. Sharpie. Adams. Davila.
It's the third slip we've seen tonight so far. One that was on the equalizing goal for the Charleston Battery. Center of the park, now on the far side. Marcanic saw MD Myers take a little tumble as well. Now that's one of the things that you've gotten out of the Charleston Battery, Mike, with the added depth of this roster and the quality that has come along with it. I just like their ability to take some more chances. I mentioned how coming into last season, really as it continued forth, you really only got an over pivot on one side, and that was the right back position. But now all of a sudden, if Nate Dos Santos and Mark Segbers comes high, that gives more freedom to Torres and Marcanic to go and chase the game, which helps free up more space, more support coming from underneath. It takes some of the pressure off of the players centrally.
Malloy for Archer. That clearly caught a hand. It's a penalty. Bounces off the outstretched arm of Adams, and Charleston heads to the spot from a goal down to potentially taking the lead.
And the danger is always going to be there when Aaron Malloy is going to flip one into the back stick and try and combine. But Kyle Adams, I'm quick to defend players in this situation as a former center back, but that arm is much too far away from a natural position and the torso overall. Great movement in general on the peel off by Segbers just to make himself available. Momentum moving away. It makes it more difficult for the defender to go up and win this thing as that transitional move is carrying you, but you have to be smarter when you leave your feet.
Marcanic stands over the ball. Loss in his young career in the run of playing games. Saved 2, 9 scored against him in 11 penalties. And Marcanic, who scored in the final last year, one of his 11 goals, steps up and scores right down the middle. And Charleston have turned the tables on Louisville City. They lead 2-1.
Let's go back to it. Watch Leland Archer starts forward and then drifts back off. Kyle Adams, he doesn't read the pace correctly. Can't adjust, arm away from the body, 12 yards out. And the man that has started this season extremely hot, trailing in quality. Only his counterpart on the other side of the pitch, Wilson Harris. Marcanic, once again, the evolution of this young man on the professional level just continues to be so positive in nature. And he puts his squad back out in front.
Former FC Cincinnati player who has now 4 goals on the young season has put Charleston in front. They seeded in the 9th minute, scored in the 10th minute, and again from the spot in the 22nd. Allen played most every minute last year, paired with Malloy tonight, who puts that shy of the hedges. Smoke pouring out. Marcanic, by the way, has attempted 21 shots. That's most of any player in the league, which tracks given that Charleston has more shots attempted this year than any team in the league.
I still go back to the purpose of what they're able to create with their quality of possession. Hovering at about 64% within this match against Louisville City just before the penalty. You don't want to call it uncharted territory, but the regularity of that conversation, Mike, very different than what we saw in 2023. That Charleston Battery team, they could sit, absorb pressure, and you don't want to call them a fully counter-attacking squad. But it was off the back line to the outside, let's find a striker, and then how many players for support can we drag with us? They now possess the capability with that quality to stop that talk. They can slow the game down, say, you know what, if the space isn't there, if the players and support aren't there, we can play this game on our own terms. That's something that with all the added players, they've been able to add that extra dimension here in 2024.
And don't you feel that, call it a misconception if you want, but Ben Pierman's side, they're known for a little bit of scratching and clawing. They're going to outwork you no matter what, and sometimes that gets in the way of what really can be some really good football at times. I think sometimes that gets misconstrued as that's all they are, rather than that's one defining characteristic of what they are.
Think about the end of our conversation with him, and I just said, listen, respectfully, your journey in USL Championship from Memphis to the Battery, you've never had this much quality on a roster. They've never had the ability to challenge positionally 15 to 18 players deep. Most of the time when we're talking about Ben Pierman and his squads that have been the past couple of years, 8, 9 guys with a couple of supporting cast members that can step in and give you minutes, help with the workload. Not game changers. That's what they have now. That's why the quality on the ball has taken such drastic steps.
Adams. Malloy. Ricochets back. Myers cut off. Playing Ordonez. Through from Gonzalez. There's Dia. Dia lashing. Tipped on and over the bar remarkably by Grinwis. And Wilson Harris robbed of his league-leading 8th of the year. And now they've deemed it offside, which only serves to demean what was otherwise an utterly unbelievable save. And the second time that Harris has been deemed offside tonight.
Watch Wilson Harris right at the top of the 18. Back shoulder run of Graham Smith. Jumps in front. All of a sudden, Smith trying to track both he and Ray Serrano. It's close. We'll say that. Once again, very clever. The tactical IQ of Wilson Harris should not be undervalued considering the amount of goals that he's been able to put in the back of the net. He's so keen to continually challenge the position of others, to try and find a way to constantly make his teammates around him better.
Played long, losses out. Myers picks his head up. They've gotten that away from the goal mouth. Loss gives credit where it's deserved to Adams. And Charleston has Louisville a bit out of sorts tonight.
Again, go with the run overall by MD Myers here. Watch him just tuck in behind Kyle Adams. So Arturo Ordonez is trying to step up, but the communication isn't there. Fortunate that there's not a back post run because Wes Sharpie had already jumped well high. Kyle Adams doesn't hear the call. He's behind. This is just smarts by a striker. It's a good recovery by the defender. But for MD Myers to come on the diagonal, sneak in behind, and carry all that speed with him, top quality run from the 9 up top.
Is there more here from Charleston? 28th minute. High arcing ball over the penalty area, away from Mark Koenig. Allen tried to lob it back in. Mogel puts it over the line. You think Charleston heard some of the talk these past few weeks, how unstoppable Louisville is, how great they look? After all, they know they're the Eastern Conference champion. And Dev, they are aware that they're getting everyone's A-plus game to start the year, including a 0-0 draw in driving cold rain in Rhode Island over the weekend. These teams on less than 72 hours rest. While Charleston had to make 2 changes, Louisville chose to make 5. It's the first time they've changed their lineup in the 5th game of the year. Dia, one of those changes. A cross header snapped at the feet of Grinwis, who was able to knock it down and hang on the Serrano header.
We've told you that the success of Louisville City really does reside at this point in time on their ability to maintain a presence on the width. Great job by Amadou Dia. Notice just holds the run, so he keeps the space and the defender at bay. Leland Archer can't go out immediately because he's got the back post run as well to be aware of. My concern right now for Louisville City is what's just in front of Carlos Mogel and Taylor Davila. The relationship side by side isn't bad, but the amount of work that's being done by the midfield three and the battery has enabled them to open up more opportunities.
Marcanic is there. Marcanic went for goal. He scored. Oh, that is a remarkable finish. His second tonight. And Charleston drops 3 on Louisville in less than half an hour.
Right on cue. I talked about the space where you drag some of that with you, but it's that up, down, and then out. Watch how quickly they start to veer towards the near side of the pitch. This is something Danny Cruz talked about against Indy 11. Felt some of their transitional moments, they got caught too nearsighted, and they forgot about all the space on the opposite end of the field. Exactly the case here. I mentioned the evolving nature that is Marcanic. Primarily on the left-hand side in 2023, comfortable on both wings, and the double on the night.
This was the dream they had. They ended up stumbling into a guy named Fidel Barajas last year. They didn't know how much they'd end up getting out of him. It turns out a lot of money from Real Salt Lake and a lot of interest from overseas. But they brought Marcanic in to be the winger of record. And while he ended up with 11 goals and had a fine season, the fact he's got 5 already this year underscores the amount of talent they felt he had. Diaz slicing ahead, this finds Grinwis. Charleston 3 goals on 1.64 expected goals. So well outperforming, including the penalty, scored by Marcanic in the 22nd minute.
Remember, for Louisville City, they did concede 3 against Indy 11, but outside of the penalty that Jack Blake was able to convert, gained some momentum back in that game. The other 2 were really just sloppy play by Lou City. I'm not taking anything away from Indy 11, but they could have easily been avoided on their own accord, right? Instead, they got in their own way.
Their XG minus the penalty was only about 0.3 in that game.
Correct.
They didn't really create that much. They had moments, though.
Very different conversation tonight.
Yes.
Picked apart in a lot of areas here by the Charleston battery. It's work rate, it's the intention of what they're quickly trying to move forward as they go again. And again, the off-the-ball movement right now for the battery, absolutely incredible.
Allen down the line, Torres. Header out of play from Amadou Dia. Another set piece for this battery side that is battering Louisville in the 33rd minute. Charleston had scored 3 goals in a regular season game for the first time since July against Pittsburgh. And they've done it in half an hour. This is not your grandfather's battery. Corner for Charleston. Archer goes up. Loss will watch this sail over. All right, so if this isn't what we saw where Indy backed 3 goals, what's the issue here for Louisville? How do you try and slow the tide?
Well, I talked about the midfield, not shape, but relationship for Carlos Mogel and Taylor Davila. They've done a good job shoulder to shoulder, but the great thing that you have when Elijah Winder is in there is the ability for one to step and the other to sit. Now that's usually Elijah Winder going, so he helps give you that added dimension going forward. But more importantly, Mike, when it's turned over, you've got pressure just underneath that front line, and they're lacking it right now. So it's been very easy for Chris Allen and Aaron Malloy to get on the ball, hold possession. You can go side to side, you can go direct. We've seen a little bit of everything from them 34 minutes into this game. And then right when they lure you in and you think, okay, we're gonna come a little bit higher, that's when the direct ball comes up over the top and they lead you in transition.
Allen being chased by Mogel. Come through Dos Santos. Acquired from Pittsburgh over the winter. Graham Smith, an all-league center back, hangs that too far for Segbers. Charleston's 32nd season, just 25 points 2 years ago, rock bottom. Last year, 59 points, the biggest turnaround by points in the history of the championship, a third-place finish in the Eastern Conference, and a run all the way to the final in November. Their luck ran about one round in the shootout too short.
Watch how narrow they're getting at times, in a good way. Outside midfielders for the Charleston Battery. Juan David Torres is allowing the talking point that we mentioned earlier, Neto Santos, to come much higher in possession. So as he pinches in, that's just another number that the Louisville midfield is trying to track. There's another slip.
Allen, Torres. Torres quickly went for that near post run. Touched out of play by Myers. Serrano. Harris lost his footing.
I can promise you, if I'm any one of these players at halftime, I'm considering going to longer studs, given the way that the grass is, we'll say, not holding up. It just seems a little bit soft, which isn't a complaint. Just have to figure out a way to gain enough traction. Fifth slip on the night by Wilson Harris, 4 separate players.
Down the line, Juan David Torres. Aligns, crosses, it's a hair too high for Marcanic, and ends up as a throw on the other end. This is as close as a rivalry can get the past 3 years. A win each way and 3 draws in 5 meetings. Louisville scored the opener. It was about 45 seconds of Louisvillian joy before Charleston snatched it away in the 10th minute. They bagged 2 in the interim. Dos Santos. Look how high Ordonez stepped to follow Myers.
You're saying look how high Ordonez is, and I'm looking at how deep Amadou Dia is. Right? Kept talking about the pressure out on the width. That's both sides for Louisville City to maintain.
I mean, the first 10 minutes when Louisville looked like they were somewhat commanding the game, McFadden was pressing the left back Dos Santos. So the Louisville wingback was 20, 30 yards from the end line. That's certainly changed.
You can have one, but you can't have both, right? You can have your center back be that aggressive in nature, but then you can't turn around and be lacking the support on the inside because of the fact that Dia is so deep on the far side of the pitch. More importantly, that he's marking someone. You could easily shift over, but that's not the case. That's the aggression getting out of the Charleston Battery. So clever with their possession right now, side to side. When they've come back up, overall, Mike, I would say that it's their patience as you get another slip that has allowed the Charleston Battery to really just pick their moments here.
They got cleaned out over that far touchline. It'll be a free kick to Charleston. Davila with the step.
I don't mind it, though. I don't mind the fact that he's overstepped in that situation. Sometimes when you've been chasing so much, when the match hasn't gone your way, certainly down by 2 is the case after 39 minutes for Lou City. Throwing some weight around, leading by example. Danny Cruz very clear about the fact that Taylor Davila, everything they wanted and more so far since his acquisition from former club RGV.
Segbers held for Charleston. And you could argue whether it's been Lee Cohen and Ben Pierman here in Charleston, president, head coach, or what Danny Cruz has done in Louisville. The additions they made this offseason, so perfectly fit need, but also as this turned over, Gonzalez further, an appeal for handball, and Harris just would not stop plowing forward. It's out for a corner. But good story. Rather, this will be apparently a goal kick. It looked like that had deflected as Harris got a piece.
He's smart. Notice how he just holds himself waiting to see exactly if Jorge Gonzalez is going to win this and have the ability to cut it back, or if he can spring himself into action.
But Dev, these guys, they so preach culture, and they acknowledge it's a cliche in most places. They acknowledge that the way they want to play, you can't have anything less than full buy-in. And the guys they bought over the offseason, they have fit the bill perfectly. Sharpie. McFadden. Sharpie. That's a poor pass forward. And driven between the center backs. Dropped off Ikaza. Malloy. Leaning back. Blasted toward frame. Adams slides. Markanik denied. Recovered by Segbers, inside Ikaza, back for Allen. Allen at loss between his legs, now he's got it. Loss is gonna hold on to this like it's King Midas's silver.
This comes down to decision making. That ball for Wes Sharpie, he needed to immediately set himself up and ping this thing to the far side of the field. Instead, 3 separate touches, slows it down, can't get it over, and then the Charleston battery just so easily stepped through the space right in front of them. You know, as good as the battery have been, certainly they've been the better of the squads. Louisville, much like Danny Cruz had mentioned going into the Indy game about everything they'd experienced so far, one of the biggest issues they're dealing with is trying to get out of their own way. Same thing right there. Again, you've got to have the proper setup if you're the battery to not only hold fast and win that ball and then quickly step through, but that decision that was so poor and so slow overall for Louisville City, quick ball to the far side of the field, not only do you escape that, Mike, you got a great counterattacking opportunity.
Mikel got held. Approaching halftime. It's a rematch of last year's conference final that Charleston won here in South Carolina. Turning upfield, Dia regains footing. He's trying to get back on side. You can see a little bit of frustration painted on the Louisville players' faces. Louisville made 5 changes, but notably, all 5 players that they did not start for the first time this year are available off the bench. Makes you wonder if there could be change afoot at halftime. Torres. Comes out to Serrano. Archer towards Smith. And now Grinwis. Up from Malloy. Davila chased it down. Dia. Mogel. Worked by Ikaza. the halfway line. Spin by Ikazi, got ripped down. That'll come with a card. Sharpie into the book. And really not through any fault necessarily of his own, but might that shape Danny Cruz's halftime considerations?
Fortunately for Wes Sharpie, just hasn't had the greatest opening 45 minutes anyway. Marcanic had come high. He's holding far side of the field. Kyle Adams starts to shift out. Then Arturo Ordonez one-on-one with MD Myers. Sharpie has to track in because of all of the midfielders and open space available that Ikaza had stepped into. They've done an incredible job here in the first half, the battery of winning the numerical advantages.
What haven't they done a great job of in this first half? 5 added minutes at the end of the first 45. Lost by Dos Santos. Look, it's not like saying Charleston lost the MVP or the singular most substantial player in their squad, but no Jackson Conway, no Arturo Rodriguez. And here they are, dropping 3 on Louisville in this first half. Swept free, Segbers and Dia getting tied up.
I think it's deeper than that too. Probably not doing it enough justice that it's not just those two that you mentioned, but center back Juan Palma making his way back from a hamstring. Josh Drack out a couple of matches, personal reasons. Jake LaCava up and down with the flu over the past couple of weeks. I mean, you're looking at 6 separate players so far for the Charleston battery that, again, it's not like this is a very deep team. That might be a little bit curious from the referee on the challenge within the midfield. MD Myers was off to the races.
Bear a second thought. Torres onto it. Torres peering, deflected out for a corner by Sharpie. And the Charleston onslaught continues. Just how close were they to a fourth? Nice ball skill, my man.
Easy, son. Easy. We got a whole second half here to show off.
No idea who this dude was. He showed up through a family friend in Charleston and said, got this guy, just let him try out. Let him have a week. It took a day and a half to sign him. Gone short. The ball juggling Torres. Swung in, punched away off the foot of Malloy. Gonzalez has some room to run into here. And a bunch of Louisville players flocking ahead. That's Torres getting popped by McFadden. Does Ben Pierman have an off switch? He doesn't, right?
I tell you, I spent a decent amount of time with him. He's cordial always.
Yeah, but he just
the intensity does slow at times.
Does it?
I didn't say it was slow. I said it slows. When you're at a 12, at a 10, and it drops to a 9, that means it slows. That doesn't mean it's motionless.
You can just see the gears turning. It really is impressive. For a long time, he was the guy who got the most out of the sum of the parts. Well, if you do that with this roster now, you're talking about a genuine championship front runner.
All of a sudden, they've done a little bit of everything. Punched above their weight class last year. Had no problem acknowledging that.
Yeah, they're a heavyweight now.
But all of a sudden, the ambition of the squad certainly right there at the top of the USL Championship. We want to win a title. They've done everything correct in the first half. I understand they conceded. It was certainly poor marking on the back post, but that's something that can be rectified. Everything else, controlled the field of play. They've kept it wide, really challenged that far side with Kyle Adams and Amadou Dia, allowed their midfielders to get on the ball, controlling the entirety of the tempo for a Lou City squad that they just look discombobulated. They look all over the pitch right now. Those glorious relationships we saw in the first 4 matches that had the team unchanged. Danny Cruz had to rotate, and I respect that. But the players that he's given the opportunity haven't lived up to pace right now.
Torres! Torres! Loss goes flying into his own net. Juan David Torres spotted glory about 40 yards that away.
They've got to be better in communication. They have to be quicker to the draw on the runs coming off of that. Everything is just a half second deep. There's no reason right there that a turn and go, a battery winger, should be allowed to happen.
Halftime. Wow, what a half from the Charleston battery. They go a goal down, and they grab the next three. A slip on a set piece opens the door for Louisville City, but a penalty, a wonderful goal by Maric, and MD Myers, right place, right time. The Charleston battery are in command. A remarkable performance from the reigning Eastern Conference champion. When we come back, a look at the unbeatens, perhaps one not for long, and those struggling at the outset of the season. Next on CBS Sports Network. Beautiful night in the Low Country. Patriots Point playing host. It's Charleston 3-1 ahead of Louisville at halftime. Two unbeaten teams meeting on this Tuesday night on CBS Sports Network, joined by Devin Kerr back in our booth. Mike Watts on hand as well. It's said that you can't win a trophy in March or April, but you can certainly lose one. And Dev, there are some teams that are off to fantastic starts. and teams that might be seeing their playoff odds dwindle very early on. Let's start with the teams that are really getting it going early.
We have to acknowledge the perfection that was coming into the night by Louisville City. 4 up, 4 down for the perennial powerhouse, but why have they been able to do so once again? You know, it's the transitional moments for them defensively, how good that they've been so far, stretching the game side to side, and the culture of this squad that cannot be undervalued. Talent is one thing, the ability to buy into the core values is another. Well, let's stay on that topic because Detroit City haven't really struggled for any of that. Great culture, great core, and they've retained all of those players. But this is about attacking prowess, how to get better. Only averaging 3/4 of a goal in the first 2 seasons, 1.79 in 2024. Pretty incredible.
Unbelievable start for Detroit on the offensive end. You can add Orange County, Sacramento, Tampa Bay, and yes, Charleston among the unbeaten teams entering week 6. All but Detroit play this week. Meanwhile, welcome to the struggle bus, Colorado Springs.
Defensively, not that surprising because Colorado Springs has always been about wide open nature, trying to be as quick as possible that they can on the attacking side with all the assets that they carry on the front line. But they've got to find a way to be more efficient in front of goal. Shots on target, lowest in USL Championship after being one of the highest in total shots. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds, they lost 12 players, but I would say the loss of their goalkeeper, Jamali Waite, Nate Dos Santos, your Defensive Player of the Year, Arturo Juniors, and your MVP, Albert Dikwa. 11 new players, regardless of talent, even difficult for the great Bob Lilly.
Well, for the Springs and in Houndtown, 3% shot conversion. That is brutal. El Paso and Expansion, Rhode Island, also winless entering week 6. These 2 teams are unbeaten coming into the night. It's Charleston that looks the better side. Ben Pierman's men trailed early, but the Batteries show their mettle. 3 goals in 30 minutes. We'll take a look at first half highlights and the second half to come on CBS Sports Network. Now that is a spirited conversation about why you need to get your wingbacks high up the field and really press, because that's the Battery way. Charleston 3, Louisville 1. Mike, Devin, let's take a look at first half highlights, of which yet again on CBS Sports, as it comes to the championship, there are many. We start in the 9th minute of play. Everything's looking up for Louisville City.
You just fully lose him on the back stick here. You have to be better if you're the Charleston Battery. Idle with all of the marking. Graham Smith cannot believe it. Doesn't even have the ability to drift off it because of the runners in front. Poor communication, and they're down early. But the response is incredible. I love what Chris Allen does here. He lures the midfield of Lou City, and I get it, it's off a slip, but quickly to step up right through the heart of the Lou City squad, then back to the outside. And on the backside of this, as bad as it was from the set piece, the marking, this is even worse from Lou City. Get caught ball watching the entire back line off the recovery, and we're back to even. Now the Charleston Battery catch a break. Leland Archer, good little spin off to the backside here, and Kyle Adams has to be smarter in this situation. He knows it, Louisville knows it, and so does Mark Koenig. From the spot, Charleston Battery out in front.
And in the 30th minute, they'd find Mark Koenig again. This is a beauty.
I love the switch here because Juan David Torres had come to the near touchline, and all of a sudden, Nick Marcanic back in his comfortable position that saw the left-sided winger get all the way to not just the Eastern Conference Final, but to the title-winning game on his left foot. His second, Charleston's third, cruising after 45 minutes.
Expected goals 2.07 to 0.41. The Battery trailed for a minute and 24 seconds, but you won't like them when they're angry. Charleston at home for just the second time this year, showing their teeth. 3-1 ahead of Louisville. The second half is coming up next. And American soccer darling, the Charleston Battery, 3-1 ahead of Louisville. And Nick Maric, 2 goals from the spot in the 22nd and a wonderful curler in the 30th. 6 games to start the year. His brace has led Charleston back to a 2-goal halftime lead. Alexis De Silva sends us into the second half tonight on CBS Sports Network with Devin Kerr, Mike Watts on hand. And this, the rematch of the conference final a year ago. Louisville, the opening goal. They've ceded 3 since, and as a result, they make 3 changes at halftime. McFadden off the wing, replaced by Wilson. Perez comes in for Gonzalez up front, and in midfield, Elijah Winder replaces Carlos Moguel. So much of the conversation as our first slip of the second half occurs for the newcomer Wilson was about how Louisville felt like it was a luxury they didn't have last year, right? They didn't have the depth due to injury or form to make all the changes they wanted. They made 5 changes tonight after none in the first 4 games to their starting 11. It was a short-lived experiment. This will get out over the line.
Felt like so much of this Lou City squad, and certainly mid-season to the end of 22, and then it funneled over into 23. Just felt like they were searching, right, for regularity, you know, within the team sheet, trying to find a way to get some sort of rhythm where it wasn't just 2 or 3 players. It was the overall quality of depth that was constantly there. And we've seen that from them in previous years. Certainly, of course, in the 2 title-winning runs, but I'd argue even the 19 team that made it all the way to the final, falling just short against the Real Monarchs. It was the same thing. And that when your number's called tonight, it's not there. This is one of those things where Danny Cruz, certainly not happy after the first half. Players, they're going to have some consequences on the backside of things because that's just not good enough. That's not good enough for any team, yet alone for Lou City.
Perez comes in alongside Dia, helps to create a corner for Louisville City just minutes out of halftime. Perez acquired as a free agent from San Diego. Miguel took all the first half set pieces, came off at the break. Bouncing ball. Perez was coming up to hit that on the first time, but he didn't get the ball, that's for sure. Graham Smith. And I was taken in speaking with Ray Serrano, young player who last year had those inconsistent runs coming off a preseason injury, just never got a real run of games because he wasn't able to break through and show it in game action. But he said the big conversation with Danny Cruz, it's a refrain we hear a lot, as Dia goes hard into a tackle, finds Winder. Are you making my job hard to leave you out? Are you making it easy for me to put you in the 11 or even on the bench? He felt like this year everyone is making his job difficult.
That's the understatement of the century after the first half.
Yeah.
Look, plenty of time for sure. And the good news is you have the ability to change the narrative. You're just hoping for the overall intensity, tackles like that to help propel you.
Winder well done. Here comes Harris. Harris! He scored from that angle against Indy. Fell out to Malloy. It's still on for Sharpie. Tough slide by Maric. Wilson Harris banged one in off the post against Indy from this angle.
The difference was for Wilson Harris, the angle's a little bit more difficult because he's closer. He was actually a touch to his right. So when I mean closer to the byline. So he had the ability to hold the goalkeeper. Adam Grinwis, knows this is going to be 1 of 2 spots. Near post if he cheats, but smartly already has that covered. Full extension into the bottom corner to make a quality save.
Harris trying to become the first Louisville player in their 10-year history to score in 5 consecutive games, much less to start a season. Is 7 goals, most of any pro player in America right now in this calendar year. It's pretty impressive from Dia. Perez turns the corner on Malloy. Trying to get by Torres. Caught Malloy.
first half was a long list of others. He's finding a way to get that front line all on the same page together. Just felt disjointed, never truly all headed in one direction. One pressing, maybe a secondary in support, but the third just drifting far off from it. Easy for the battery to work around when they started to move in transition. Same kind of conversation.
Winder chasing. Kenny Cruz said he's been excellent to start the year, but he played every minute to start the campaign. At some point, you got to sit the young midfielder down. There's Winder again. Charleston will play on the weekend. They'll go to Indy 11. Louisville gets the weekend off. So perhaps their arithmetic a little different as they chase this game. Corner to come.
What's that, by the way?
Math?
No, a weekend off.
Oh.
Why don't we get a bye week?
Buddy, there were about 6 jokes between the two of us that could have sprung out of that.
Yeah. Still waiting on the pretzel.
How's November 30th sound? Weekend off.
It sounds like I'd be calling it quits early, and you'd have to have a conversation with the contract holders.
Out in front of the drumming Charleston support. Corner for Louisville to try and dig back into this game. Went for the near post, chipped in! There's one back that Louisville so desperately needed, and Davila knocks it home. The flick on from Ordonez found Davila, and he's got his second goal in Louisville colors.
The flick is everything here. Just the separation that he's able to create. Arturo Ordonez between he and Leland Archer just pinches around. There's a little pick set in front of him, and then the flick. Actually misses it just a touch, but it comes off the shoulder of the back stick. Even though Nate Dos Santos had gone to ground here, still plenty of battery players that could have shifted back off and stepped into the space. Wisely taken by the midfielder from Louisville.
Who would have thunk 2 goals off corners for Louisville? Gonzalez in the 9th, that from a long way out. See a loss sliding over, that's untouched. And then Davila in the 52nd, and suddenly, the words of Ben Pierman when we spoke to him yesterday ring a little more true. Remember how he said last year you get that free kick goal from Arturo Rodriguez and you're thinking, all right, here we go, 30 minutes of domination. Then you look at the scoreboard and it's only 1 and it's Louisville, and you know at their best just how good they can be. Serrano got kicked out by Torres. Should come with a card for Torres too.
How does it not? It's late, it's in from behind. This is really clever, by the way, from Ray Serrano. Watch how he recognizes that as Perez starts to peel off, the space is closed down. He doesn't have the ability to get down into the corner. He'll lose the foot race against Mark Segber, so he peels up here. And just the contact on the back side of that ankle. Serrano seems to start to be coming really into his own for Louisville City. In the absence of Brian Ownby, 4.5 matches in, overall quality has certainly stepped up for the youngster.
2 goals, 3 assists on Louisville's 16 goals this year. And for Juan David Torres, his 3rd yellow in 265 minutes. He's working toward that early weekend off. That's what we need to do, just accumulate yellows. You go first.
I'm not sure bothering the network execs was on my bingo card tonight.
Wilson Harris got a yellow for dissent after the fact too. Serrano snapped over by Archer. Wilson Harris being heard, but not appreciated by Alexis De Silva. Ball up, finds Ikaza. That's a foul, although it might be worth looking at the yellow card. Look at Ikaza gesturing. Now look at 14, dead middle of your screen. So the arms go up, looks at the official, then you start clapping in his general direction, and you move closer and closer. That'll usually get you a card. Is that soft for you?
Let's just say that my rule book looks a little different than what we're abiding by within this game. I do understand it, though. Listen, you're trying to set a precedent within the match and just police it in the appropriate manner. I'll respect that as long as it stays consistent, right? I'll say that last year, you and I were on a couple of matches where an emotional override, where Wilson Harris just kind of let the moment get the better of him. Did come back to cost Louisville City. Remember the game at Detroit? Ended up getting thrown out at the tail end of it because he was barking at the referee early on in the game. Tackle at the end. Gave him his marching orders on the double yellow. These are those games. It's the rivalry match. The thoughts of what could have been the year prior for Lou City against the Charleston Battery. And this isn't the baby brother that for a couple of years Lou City was able to have their way with. The great Mike Anhauser put this team on the map that kept them there for the better portion of 2.5 decades. Took off. Connor Casey wasn't able to keep it afloat. Now Ben Pierman, coach, Lee Cohen in the front office. Certainly one that everybody used to dismiss on the schedule. Now they fear it.
Ben Pierman's second year at the helm, 38-year-old Detroit native. Came out of Michigan State as an assistant. The chance to fully integrate into the professional game is what helped eventually draw him from Detroit City before they came to the championship to Memphis. And in Memphis, I don't think I'm breaking any news to say he felt the supporters agreed and got nearly enough support. So when Charleston went looking for a coach under their new president, Lee Cohen, you can see that turn to the sideline. Marcanic's night is about to be over. Ben Pierman didn't come with a fancy presentation or a 3-hour dissertation. No, it was just a long conversation with Lee Cohen that left both thinking this might be a fit. Turned out to be the perfect fit. So Marcanic being looked at. What a night he's had.
The penalty that was off the set piece that caught Kyle Adams on the hand. And Damian Loss packing the other direction. This was my favorite, though, the switch that saw Juan David Torres go to the far side immediately on the turn, using the right foot to his advantage. Onto the left for Marcanic. Shouldn't be surprising the success that this young man has been able to have at the professional level. Certainly Cincinnati didn't see the overall value in 2022. I respect that, but his production, 4 goals and 2 assists after 15 matches, catapulted him to the USL Championship spotlight, especially towards the tail end of the season for the Charleston Battery. And talking to Ryan Swan at Northern Illinois, he just talked about how he and his twin brother Anthony, they took over the program. These were 2 young men that pushed the limits, indoor, outdoor, the weight room, always finding a way to make everybody else around them better. Certainly the case here for the Charleston Battery in 24.
Haven't you heard a coach say, if only I could clone this one player and have 20 of them? Well, you have 2 Marcanics. As a twin, I understand. Ball in front. Oh, it's Harris! Swings that wide of the post. And Louisville really finding their sea legs in South Carolina now.
The reestablishment of the midfield certainly hasn't hurt, and I would still go back to the fact that they've been able, in their first 4 matches, at the start of the second half here tonight, to have more of a presence on the outside, Mike. Jansen Wilson finally involved. Really didn't see anywhere near enough of Aiden McFadden in the first half. I would argue that didn't even call his name, albeit from the recent acquisition. You stay outside, you keep the shape of the Charleston Battery spread out. It allows that talented midfield to get on the ball, your 210s and Ray Serrano and Adrian Perez to drop underneath, start to find a way to connect the dots. within the midfield and right in front of that back line. That frees up more time for Wilson Harris to challenge this defensive back line.
This is enticing for Charleston. Ball ladled ahead and chipped high and wide. That was a decent look for the Battery.
Just the way that he spins off of it on the tail end. Watch his body as he's trying to open up here. Now he wants the ball in front of them, and then his first touch isn't the best. It's got to come right back across. Just a touch. He brings it onto the right shoulder a bit further, Mike. All of a sudden, he's got the ability to get more curl on that ball and pick out the far post, or use his momentum to come across it and sneak it in on the near side.
5 corners aside, Malloy. That header is wayward. The way it was Gutierrez who came on from Arcanic. That's added to a long list now of Battery injuries, present and past. Here's the corner. Not bad look from Graham Smith in the end. This is the aforementioned Gutierrez. Second appearance off the bench, has played in all 6 games this year. Brought in from Portland, where he split time between their MLS side and their next pro 3rd division side. I was chatting with a coach in the league over the last 2 weeks that described this being the first full turn of next pro guys that for whatever reason didn't fit in a certain place. And championship teams are finding a good market there. By the way, it's worth noting there's a little bit of slippage there. There's science behind this, isn't there, as we contemplate what's occurred?
I joked a little bit that the grass was a touch soft, but interestingly enough, the Charleston Battery, they only put about 30 seconds of water onto the pitch in each zone before kickoff, and so the dew point has dropped so dramatically that there's more condensation on the field. That's why you're seeing all the slipping right now. It's a combination of low country itself in South Carolina and the weather that has rolled through. I'd still consider changing my studs, but it does give you an idea of why we've seen so many guys unnecessarily leaving their feet.
The dew point is 57. The temperature is about 65. The humidity is a balmy 77%.
Well, that math checks out real easy.
It sure does. That's low country for you, isn't it? Approaching the end line, ball laced all the way through. Segber's knew better. He felt the so a corner coming for Louisville City. Some must-watch championship action on CBS. A 5-3 Louisville win over 11,000 at Lynn Family Stadium on Saturday on CBS. Louisville got to a 1-0 early lead here. Charleston only trailed for 1:24. Went up 3-1 inside half an hour. Corner for Louisville. Grinwis punches, finds Torres. All the way down to Loss. I said at the end of the game, I don't know that we can guarantee 5 goals every time you see USL on CBS. We're kind of inching toward that fact, though. It's over Dia. Harris, have to appreciate the effort, I guess. Grinwis, 31-year-old Michigan native, played at Orlando for a 5-year, 2-stint run. But it was Brian Jones, his goalkeeper coach at St. Louis, helped make him attractive after Trey Muse went to Portland over the offseason. Seeking Torres, there's Loss. Adams.
That's a dangerous ball. He's fortunate enough to keep it in, but mighty risky. Stones to come all the way across the center of the box.
Well, do they get rewarded? It felt like a naive move. Diaz, or rather Dia. Dia beneath it again. Stabbed in for Perez. A little room here for Davila. Head swiveling. Sharpie. Spinning. Jansen Wilson got his first pro goal last game and tried that knee slide. When he knee slid with Wilson Harris, it was pristine. When he had to do it on his own, he had to apologize to the groundskeepers in Louisville for taking up a pretty big chunk of turf.
He sent any dancing lessons, the groundskeeping staff, everybody packing.
The groundskeeper said, look, you keep scoring like that, that's just fine.
Just stay off my pitch. Great goal, young man. Now go clean up your divot. Really like the amount of pressure that we've seen out of Louisville City here in the second half, and really the last 10 minutes much more impressive. Watch the high line that you're getting out of the wingbacks. They're coming much more further up the field. You get them higher, all of a sudden that takes some of the pressure off the back line. It allows your midfield to start to chase the game a little bit, be more proactive instead of chasing all the shadows to the midfield of the Battery that we saw in the first half. More control, more confidence, everything just building right now for Louisville City.
Winder inside, Serrano. Toward the halfway line, Torres corrals. Dia goes in. As much as you like Amadou Dia on the field, you like him just as much off. What about a guy you want on your side in the trenches? Pushed ahead. Maybe there's something on here for Louisville. Swept through by Harris. Got all the way through. Archer went sliding and got 5-hold.
Interesting how much freedom they're giving Ray Serrano, almost playing as a secondary 10, but deeper than Adrian Perez. You know, Winder comes high, and my favorite thing about the Louisville City midfield is that 1-2 punch between Elijah Winder and Taylor Davila that has developed over the opening 4 matches of the season. Certainly the couple of weeks they spent together in preseason, but as Davila comes underneath, he starts to pull the strings, but it's the two in front now with Winder and Serrano that are really challenging the Battery overall. That's Ray Serrano, 20 yards from his own net, coming all the way back in to try and get on the ball. So the Battery trying to figure out where that run's coming from. You constrict them in to try and add numbers to it, and then all of a sudden, that's where Dia and Wilson are starting to get involved in the attack coming forward.
Harris putting the pressure on Segbers. Adams, that get away.
Ben Pierman very clear when talking about the matchup against Louisville City. He said, hands down, they're the most complete, well-balanced team. What looks like a back 3 or a back 5 with the 2 in the midfield, stout defensively, but he was specific about two players. Elijah Winder, his athletic ability to control the tempo for this Louisville City team in the midfield, and Adrian Perez, a high-level footballer, how his IQ helps this attack stand apart from the others.
Can Perez help Louisville? Not this game. Won't be that simple. Settled. Wilson! Louisville City supporters have Wilson the volleyball. Well, between Wilson Harris and Jansen Wilson, you've got options now.
I don't think he needed a hit, though, to your point, because you're moving away from goal. You're approaching 30 yards out. Adam Grinwis has all of that covered. Might expect that frustration from someone like Amadou Dia, not because of the player himself, but what he's experienced within the match. Not a lot of opportunities, but for a guy that's been on the field 25 minutes, calming nature has to supersede the overall decision in that situation.
That's a late leaping challenge. Harris has to be careful. He's on that yellow card for dissent.
And against the one player that, if you're Ben Pierman, is probably one of the last ones that you want to see go to ground. Surprised there's not a card involved with that. Studs up the entire way. He's incredible, Aaron Malloy. Coming into the night, leads the lead in touches, passes completed, efficient in doing it, 87.1% on the field so far.
The counting numbers are good. Everyone knows that. What separates Malloy from any other midfielder in the league?
It's what we talked about coming in. Work rate for sure, but to survey and know exactly when he's supposed to go right. It's the moment where he needs to press. He needs to get out of that center spot, get out of that comfort zone and go and chase the game a little bit. The overall control that he provides for his team, because he goes and wins that tackle, knocks the 5-yard ball, and then they're off and running. But he'll make a 35-yard run just to close space down and won't actually ever leave his feet.
Dia. Another corner.
His distribution skills, the vision, all of it makes for a total football in the midfield for the Charleston Battery.
Back-to-back first-team All-League Aaron Malloy at Memphis. First under Ben Pierman, then under Stephen Glass, after being an MVP finalist in League One the year prior. Louisville's planning a change. Dia is making his way off in his first start of the year. And you can see in the background, there is Jake Morris, who's come flying into the season. Cousin of the U.S. national teamer Aiden Morris, former Next Pro title winner in Columbus. What Dale Carnegie said, make friends and influence people.
Kyle Adams is doing that right now with Leland Archer.
Yeah. The Manners School really paid off. Adams guilty of a penalty, his arm extended in the air in the 22nd minute. A handball, and Marcanic put Charleston in front then. They've led ever since. Corner driven, that's a foul. It's gone against Winder. Charleston making a change. That's it for Juan David Torres, who is on a yellow. Dev, the guy who's coming in, you had a chance to talk to him this week. This is out and out one of the most talented and most tatted guys in the league.
Jake LaCava feels like he's finally found a home here for the Charleston Battery. That a little bit of an outcast from the Red Bull organization that then saw him try his talents in South Beach for Inter Miami. Not necessarily appreciated there, got caught in this gray area of higher than their second squad in MLS Next Pro, but not pushing into the 18 for the senior team. But just 2 short seasons ago, on loan from Red Bull with the Tampa Bay Rowdies, 12 goals, 6 assists, and 37 appearances. And you want to talk about work rate. Hard to argue what Jake LaCava brings to the game. His speed, his ability to make defenders feel uncomfortable, especially when he can work to the outside and then drag players with him, get him one-on-one and run at a back line. That's where he's at his best.
That's going to be another whistle. Louisville doesn't really have a backup 9 per se. They've got Tola showing me on their bench. They've sort of filled that slot by committee. They've used Jorge Gonzalez, who's come off already, and the injured Sam Gleedle. Could have used Brian Omby, however, he remains out after surgery on his leg this past week. Yet there he was waving at the fans on Saturday. Ever the gentleman. Whistle's gone here. That's a foul that has the battery bench incensed, and LaCava has made an immediate impact.
Here's the problem here. It's not the actual challenge, it's the arm that gets him into trouble. Jake LaCava just reached over the shoulder to get himself into trouble. The touch itself is pretty good.
By the way, LaCava, a guy who less than a year and a half ago, Inter Miami dropped $150,000 in allocation money on him. But with the constant churn there, never really had a chance to showcase. Flag is down for the moment. Into the area, player down, chance is on, deflects away from MD Myers from Gutierrez. Dos Santos crossing, header. If he had just allowed that through, it would have been LaCava all alone, but instead Myers right at loss. And out now by Archer. The action's been good. You can expect more of the same. Our next game here on CBS Sports Network comes April 27th. From St. Pete, Al Lang. The Rowdies welcome New Mexico United. New Mexico in its short history has had some unbelievable moments. The Rowdies, one of the most historic names in American soccer. Flick through Serrano. Comes out to LaCava.
If Louisville can clean this up, they're going to find another breakthrough here. They've been on the ball and been better, moving it side to side, making sure that there's enough space to step into growing forward as they get comfortable down underneath. 69% of possession has run through the visitors over the last 15 minutes. And again, that overall quality just lacking a touch, which has prohibited them from finding an equalizer.
Battery want to try and put this away. Another goal could well do it. Swept along Icaza. Icaza, LaCava! Close. Still Louisville breathes.
One of the biggest fears you're going to have if you're Damian Loss is your back line all out of sorts, and that's exactly what happens. Sharpie is high. Arturo Ordonez has to go out. All of a sudden, Kyle Adams is 2v1 atop the 6. We'll say that here's the other thing to think about. As frustrating as it's been, as poor as the first half was for Louisville City, they have been the better team in the second half. They've won the second half. I get it, it's just 1-0, but they fought their way back into this valiantly. Just not sure how much they're going to need to go and actually find the remainder of this. Ben Pierman really good normally about making changes down the stretch. Surprised with the amount that they've had to chase over the last quarter hour that he hasn't made changes to bring in fresh legs.
Here come the Battery. Allen. Header finds Myers. Dropped it off. Malloy. Ricochets back out toward the halfway line. Riding out the challenge, Perez sweeps ahead, only to see Grinwis off his line. He's way off his line. Picked up here by Harris. Now they're knocked wide. Ball inward, deflects down, Ikaza circulates. Minutes gone. This is, if you're the Battery, it's wild that this game is so wide open right now with a lead.
Just waiting for this last 10 minutes to come to a closure pretty quickly. And again, the options that you would have with 10 minutes to go, you're probably looking at Josh Drack, which you can play on the outside, but you'd have to move Nate Dos Santos off. See Mark Segbers coming to the left side because Josh Drack is a left-sided player. So it's, do you feel like Nate Dos Santos has enough in the tank? Well, the answer there is yes. And then centrally, you've got Robbie Crawford. You're not pulling Aaron Malloy off. The question would be is if you want to make a change for an Emilio Ikaza just underneath, that's possible. Or Chris Allen. See, to me, Chris Allen has to stay next to him because he and Aaron Malloy have done a pretty good job here tonight. The other three remaining are Academy players, Matt Dean, Braden Cobb, and Charlie Dennis, who haven't seen any professional reps outside of Charlie Dennis in Open Cup play last year.
Well, fans are splayed throughout the stadium enjoying the various areas. It is officially a sellout tonight in Charleston. There is contact behind the play. Charleston free kick to try and take a little bit of air out of the ball. And you can see the referee telling Wilson Harris no more. Next foul for him could very well be the second yellow.
27 minutes of troublesome situations for Wilson Harris. Those are just tired legs. He's not trying to get stuck in on the player inappropriately. Wilson Harris just a ton of running off the ball here in the second half to try and find a way to get this team back into it.
9 goals in 31 games last year, 7 goals in this, his 5th game this year. Look in the Charleston bleachers. Tuesday night in the championship, the first of 22 games on CBS Sports Network this year from the championship and League One. 3 more on CBS, 75 on CBS Sports Golazo Network, which is available on the CBS Sports app.
How's that for a ball?
Launched along, Grinwis had to deal with that. Second time he's come high. Malloy. Hooked ahead for LaCava. Loss drops in. LaCava settles, crosses, header up. Ikaza. Penalty. Loss comes pouring out, pounds Ikaza. And now Charleston can essentially seal it at the spot. A yellow card to the keeper as well, who was late. And any hope Louisville has of salvaging the night will belong to the goalkeeper.
I just hope Emilio Ikaza is okay in this situation. This is a heck of a coming to on the back post. You can't fault the goalkeeper for being aggressive. Damian Loss knows that he has to leave his line. Wes Sharpie has his wits all turned round. But as he comes, it's just a little bit slow. You can't blame him either. He's got the near post to think about. He's trying to get a reaction on the backside. Credit to Emilio Ikaza. Just talking about the long legs that have been 84 minutes into this match and whether or not that might be a change they would look at. Who was the playmaker going to be? Could they find an extension in the 10? Would it be recreated through the aggregate? Would it be one person? It's been a little bit of all of that at times tonight for the Charleston Battery. Broken leg early on in the season last year. Took them a while to get going. Constant tonight. And what should be an opportunity for Aaron Malloy to ice this for the Charleston Battery.
Marcanic went right down the middle in the 22nd minute. Malloy has a wonderful free kick goal already in front of home fans. Looking for his second goal for the Battery. It's saved by Loss. Follow-up Loss again on Myers. And Louisville with a pulse late, and Los atones in a major way.
Quickly go back to the foul, just Emilio Icaza. Watch him on the back post. Good job setting himself. Los comes out, creates contact. Watch this save. I mean, don't mind if you do, Damian Los. Full extension, actually has to reach up and behind him just a touch. Immediately resets himself. No questions whatsoever about the quality that young man brings to the table for Louisville City.
Corner for Charleston. Swung in, contact galore. That's going to be a whistle. Now Serrano has come off, and Louisville has gone to their bench again. It's their 5th and final sub. It sees Tola showing me come in. They're going to leave Harris in on the yellow card. Bring on a second striker. And the longer this goes, you know the referee and the 4th official for that matter are watching their watch tick, tick, tick up for potential stoppage. We are far from done tonight in South Carolina. Both these teams are unbeaten in the championship. Of the 24 teams, just 6 without a loss through 5 weeks. Sharpie. Louisville granted another lease and trying to get points here on the road. They're attacking willfully down the right-hand side. And the Turf Monster wins again. Showing me pursues, he held up adequately. Showing me, that bangs over to Malloy. Got away from Perez. Swiped back by Louisville in the attacking third. Ball lined up atop the penalty area for a blast wide. What a stunner that would have been from Taylor Davila. Scored in the 52nd, nearly scored a banger in the Indy game over the weekend too.
One very similar. English, spot on, just needs it to turn a little bit more, and he knows that he's undercut it. Wants a little bit further rotation on the ball to squeak inside that near post. As good as they can be on the outside, moving quickly, finding a way to stretch their ability. Not only be vertical, but horizontal in nature, come the other direction. Create that clear separation. Has enabled them to stay constant here in the second half.
Winder did just enough to keep this alive. Now over the top. There's contact on Morris. He goes down. It's outside the area. It is a free kick. It's going to come with merely a yellow card to Marc Segbers.
Marc Segbers knows that he's beaten. What he's trying to do here is get the inside track on the ball that comes up over him. So many defenders feel like in the moment they're going to be able to slow up for just a second, come over the backside of the runner, not make contact, and then immediately get back up to speed. 90% of the time, you do create contact. Referee blows the whistle, and now you wonder here, Louisville City very crafty off the ball in these situations. A lot of times, they try and run a misdirection, get you thinking they're going to play one way, and then have a second or a third runner to give them options as to which direction they want to head. Now, you're still in a spot where you can go direct to goal. No question about that whatsoever. About 28 yards out, Wilson Harris could have a go. You could go touch, stop, hit. You've also got 2 quality ball strikers in Davila and Wilson right atop the box if you wanted to go that way.
4 in the wall, 3 more from Louisville. Being gestured to move just a little bit further away. There's a little room at that near post, and there is that option square. The step over, Harris. He'll regret that. next kick will be in stoppage time.
Catches it on the way up. The entirety of this motion, notice his body, he doesn't get over it, leaning back just a touch, and the follow through just always on the up. He doesn't catch the ball with enough rotation to bring it back down and go after Adam Grinwis. That's one of those ones that you're tired, Mike. It's the end of the game. I get it. Hottest striker in the USL Championship. You wonder with the quality that you have up there, whether or not it's the best decision.
6 added minutes. When these teams faced off in November, it went all the way to the end. They get that luxury again. Winder got hamstrung. Segbers won it back. Forward from Ikaza. There's a tug. Referee didn't see it. Well, what it ultimately was seen was an offside player. 5 more minutes. Charleston planning changes. They'll make them now. Myers gets his job done. Here comes Crawford and Josh Drack. Myers scoring the right place at the right time back in the 10th minute of this game.
Give him credit to just continue forth here because he actually started the creative movement. Then the ball comes off of him, unselfish coming back, and then smartly just drifting off to the backside, allowing himself to get the opportunity on the rebound. Charleston Battery flying in the first half. Feels like they're hanging on here in the second.
Ikaza off as well. And that's the final sub window for Charleston. The whistle's gone. It's offside for Louisville City. 4 more minutes. Battery looking to pull level with Louisville atop the Eastern Conference on points, with Detroit on 12. Detroit will have 2 games in hand on the Battery, 1 on Louisville. Oof. Antonio is shouting back. Referee doesn't deem a foul, but does say that there's a LaCava head injury. Pause play. 3 minutes remaining.
You know, real time. I thought Ordonez went straight up here, and he tries to undercut him in this situation. Watch the right shoulder. To be fair, it's a little bit of both from him, isn't it? Arturo Ordonez, he does step into the left side a little bit. Jake LaCava certainly drifts in to the path coming up underneath the defender.
Back up and moving. They used all 3 substitution windows. LaCava appears clear to continue. The concussion substitute rule does remain in effect, it's worth noting. Or if LaCava did need to come out due to a head injury, both teams would be allowed an extra sub and an extra window. That's not the case here. Segbers on the run. Segbers probably going to let that go. Morris ricochets through. Perez went down. No call. Play on. Adams knocks it down. Comes to Winder. Winder may have been hit from behind. Nothing there either. In from Morris. We're going to go past the 6 minutes with the injury. That's a foul. Winder sees a free kick. Meanwhile, what happened in the area a moment ago?
This is masterclass for Morris. Watch how quickly on the cutback. Little Cruyff turn to then bring this back to the penalty mark. Thought it was a pen. You know, initially, real time, Mike, I thought it was a pen. As it slowed down, It almost looks like Perez feels the contact coming and then insinuates the motion itself to come to ground. Remove the fact that he's already struck the ball. Intent can be everything in that situation. Actually feel when they go that direction, and as slow as it is, referee's got it right.
Long ball through. Harris collects. Knocked away in part by Archer. Further now, lobbed across Davila. Picked up by Wilson. Ball slashed through, header away, drops to Dos Santos, he clears. Now toward La Cava, Adams collects, down to Ordonez. And back to Loss. Louisville is seconds away from being knocked out of the ranks of the unbeaten at the hands of Charleston. Out over the line by Crawford. Another 5 goals tonight. Is there just one more in it? Header slashed across Grinwis. Let it run by. Collects. We've gone the 6th. There was an injury during that stoppage. Is that smoke a red herring? Battery fans already starting to suggest their victory is imminent. Grinwis away, the referee content to let this play through. Toward La Cava, off the head of Winder, free kick. It's got to be now for Louisville City. Ben Pierman saying we've gone well over the 6 minutes. Last chance saloon for Louisville City. Winder. The room out here to operate for Morris. Looks in on Segbers, sends the early service, ball away toward La Cava. La Cava got knocked down. That'll come with a card. That's Davila. And is that enough tonight? Charleston had to sweat it out at the end. And at this point, if you're the Battery, you just put this in the water. That's it, it's full time. And the Charleston Battery pick up a 3-2 win, remain unbeaten, and get the best of Louisville City again, whose perfect start comes to an end in the Low Country. Marcanic a brace, and the Battery win it 3-2. And there's plenty more coming after the fact. So it continues, a mutual distaste for one another. What a night in Charleston. Our coverage will continue after the break. This was a physical battle, a test of wills. The Battery come out on top, 3-2. Our Pulse Game coverage coming up next on CBS Sports Network. It is 11 unbeaten for Charleston in the regular season, their longest streak since 2018. A 3-2 win over Louisville, and Louisville now unbeaten no longer. We'll look at full-time highlights from this affair. There's a lot of them. We start just the 9th minute of play, Devin.
This is a tale of two halves, and it's not even a question how good the Charleston Battery were in the first half, but it did take a couple of minutes to get going. They get caught ball watching on the back post. All of a sudden, off and running, Jorge Gonzalez off the set piece, 1-0, just 60 seconds later. Great movement here by Chris Allen coming out of the midfield. Watch MD Myers, drags Arturo Rodriguez, then drops off a little bit. As he collects here, recognizes can't make the turn, drops it, and then the recovery to find the equalizer for the Charleston Battery. 1-1 after just 10 minutes of play.
And Charleston hardly done after the Myers equalizer. 22nd minute, it's Kyle Adams with an extended arm.
Just got to be smarter in this situation as a defender. Go straight up, use your arms to your advantage to leap, not that far away from the body. Off of Archer, off of Adams, to the penalty mark we go. And once again, Maric finds the back of the net, his 4th on the season, but they were not done yet. Watch how good this ball is. They had flip-flop sides. Juan David Torres, beautiful ball up to the end of the direction. Wes Sharpie got caught out a ton here in the first half. Much better second half performance, but that's the double on the night from Maric, and the Charleston Battery lead. Now, let's turn the page here in the second half. A ton of possession for Louisville City, but both of their goals would come from set-piece opportunities. Good rotation on the back stick, 3-2. Felt like it was going to be too little too late as the clock started to tick down. Couldn't get anything going, but then Damian Loss comes out, thought maybe this was going to be the icing on the cake for the Charleston Battery. Magical save by Damian Loss into the bottom corner.
Not once, but twice, but Louisville can't find the equalizer late. There's a look at your full-time stats. Chance to have for your final thoughts.
Charleston Battery in its entirety were great for 45 minutes, and then they hung on. Louisville City, although segmented in nature, had a much better second half with the preferred 11 normally chosen by Danny Cruz. They just left themselves too much work to do, and they seemed scattered. So we saw a little bit out of the front line, some good defending, quality midfield play, but not the true cohesion that saw them go 4 games unbeaten to start the season.
Here's a look now at the standings in the championship. Charleston on goal difference above Detroit. We have 2 games in hand, and now just 3 teams in the Eastern Conference unbeaten: Detroit, Charleston, and Tampa Bay. The CBS Sports Golazo Network game of the week, 9 p.m. on Saturday. El Paso will host Oakland. The next game on CBS Sports Network, Tampa Bay hosting New Mexico on April 27th. UEFA Euro qualifying coming up. For Devin Kerr and our entire team in Charleston and beyond, Mike Watts saying, thanks for watching the USL on CBS as Charleston, a 3-2 late nail-biter with some theatrics. They win it.